my role on earth as I walk by kids and cats and dogs and other people and the people I love and people I don't know is to activate them and get them out of the spellbinding delusion they're in. And I wish to always remember that for myself too, because we can fall asleep again.
So are are we born in this spellbinding delusion, or is that something that's learned from a
God,
from
great
a
question.
from an infant to adulthood?
Yeah, so I would say that physiologically, and a lot of people, others have written about this. Maybe you've had people on your show. There's been there's been a natural degrading and tampering with the human DNA blueprint embodiment that would allow for it to have a maximal capacity to be the conscious, antenna that the human being is supposed to be on Earth.
Right.
We're like little. We talk about this, like my partner and I and others. We're like little cilia, like little bits of the intestine or something. We're like information receivers and transmitters to the broader organism of the Earth, and then out to the solar system, and then out to the galaxy, and actually between dimensions in quantum state between all phenomena. But in every individual human has to be healthy. Every grouping of humans, every society. So there's been an energetic tampering with human beings, their bodies, literally their bodies, for a long time, and it's cascaded into the degradation of culture, social cohesion, what love is, what connection is, what self is, everything.
Okay, Josh, how's it going?
Good, really well. Thanks for having me.
So you're doing a book tour in Barcelona right now, and where do you go after Barcelona?
All right, yeah. So from Barcelona, it will be back to Austin, Texas, then to Toronto, and then to New York in October because I have a film screening there, and that'll be adjacent to promoting or speaking to the book as well. On from
Hmm.
there, a couple other places.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first lineup.
What kind of film screening is?
Yeah, for the last 12 years, I was involved in with the Tibetan community in Toronto, making a spoken in Tibetan film about things like the Bardos, the in-between state after death, and stuff like that. It's a feature film, not a documentary.
Uh-huh.
Spoken in Tibetan took a long time to make, and that is premiering at Tibet House. Robert Thurman, Uma Thurman's dad's endeavor that like Richard Gere and all those types
Right.
uh, you know, they fund it. So it's a beautiful, beautiful museum in New York. So the film will be played there. So yeah,
Oh, very cool. Now,
yeah.
are you a producer for that, or how does that work?
So it's weird film like that in such an uncommon type of film. I ended up directing, co-writing. All the parts of film just become sort of everyone's job at the same time when it's not a
Right.
multi-million dollar mega thing. So yes, I directed and wrote it. Yeah,
Very nice.
most
Very, very
yeah.
cool. So, and then you've got this book coming out, that is out, Cosmic Rebirthing and Our Celestial Destiny. Tell us about that. Um, it's is this a channeled book? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, it probably doesn't fit under that strictly. Parts of it or a through line of its way that it came to be in real time while writing is, you could say, channeled in that it's beyond some academic or intellectual or research thing. And on the other hand, I'm sort of a weird hybrid where I do channeling. I live in that intuitive space, the heart space, the spirit space, the multidimensional plane of consciousness for my work with people, and direct, yogic or spiritual relationship. And yet I'm interested in, you know, the historic, yoga or any of those things. So I contextualize in the book. A lot of people don't do this. There's a lot of bypassing in the new age. They just sort of imagine they've just finally discovered how Kundalini really is, or, always thinking they're reinventing things. But the ancient technologies of humanity, obviously spanning back pre-Atlantean, just human awareness of the nature of reality and then what to do
Mhm.
about that to transcend and evolve has cultural roots and has canonized way of looking at it. So I don't rest on that because I do direct work where you don't need language. But the book is a mix where it actually gets into definitions, things like that as well.
Mhm. So for those who are kind of new to this, what is Kundalini?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, I think my experience and opinion, um, because that's something I've been through, it also isn't something that just ends. It's not like an event and then click the lights on. Though there's a piece and an era in one's life that that does happen. I think that there's these psychophysiological, organic aspect to it where you have an actual change in the body, the human body, and then the subtle fields within the body with bioelectric aspect of what a human really is beyond just cells, and chemistry, right? That there's an acceleration in the speed and size where consciousness and sensing happens. And the yogic masters going back forever, 40,000 years almost documented, it seems, talk about how when we basically move through all these illusions, delusions, and traumas, just start in our own lives, right back to childhood, go to the womb. And then if you wish and you're capable and you have focus and maybe help, we go back multi lives and you see these themes through life to life to life that are stopping us from evolution. Everything's about evolution.
Hmm.
Kundalini is just evolving in real time in one lifetime in a big jump, not just, well, I learned a bunch of stuff. I learned a bit better how to be a good person, or maybe I didn't and I failed, whatever the normal karma of a life is. It's that one really came into broadening consciousness, right, as an energy and as data as well. And they talk about the nadis, they're like these little portals and chakras. Everyone knows this is totally normal now to know about that, but the difference is they're sort of like portals to other layers of reality. So you're actually having an extension of your relationship to sensing. It's like senses blend, and then we can take in more of everything at all times. And once it happens, if someone has a Kundalini awakening, and there's no maybe I did, if you did, you did. It's like dying. It's like dying. The old ego's dead. It doesn't mean you don't have an ego. If you have a body, you have an ego. I don't want to bump into the wall. It just there's a sense of ego, meaning there's an integrated I. People think there's no
Right.
ego. Dissolution of the ego. I'll stop in a second if you don't want me to go too long on Kundalini, but
No, please keep going. Keep going.
yeah, the dissolution of the ego in totality, where duality breaks down, is like the goal of enlightenment, right? We know this. People kind of know that. They've read that. They've heard that. That doesn't necessarily happen if we have a Kundalini awakening. Kundalini awakening is just access to more energy and conscious relationship to our environment and seen and unseen layers of nature. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, that's what I could do on Kundalini at the moment.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, how does that work in with your book in itself? Is the book
Yeah, I
a kind
mean,
of a how-to or kind of an introductory to Kundalini?
yeah, that's a really great question because I wish, and my ambition, intention, and guiding principle or the energy behind it is for it to be that. Every word, even actually as I speak now, and I think this is true for people at varying degrees, myself humbly acknowledging others further up the totem pole or the ladder, whatever, of development. We are always, I'm looking up to them. And if I'm humble enough, these others that I meet in my life, we all meet these people. If we're humble enough and get out of our own way, we can feel that every single thing they're saying, mostly kids don't pay attention, right? We're sort of like children, that everything they're saying is emanating a broader wisdom of reality. So I only have whatever I have to offer, but I hope that every word I'm ever doing all the time, and that's subject to my ability to stay focused and conscious in my capacity. But the book, every word, every sentence, every paragraph, every through line, to be a transmission whereby someone might get activated, my role on earth as I walk by kids and cats and dogs and other people and the people I love and people I don't know is to activate them and get them out of the spellbinding delusion they're in. And I wish to always remember that for myself too, because we can fall asleep again.
So are are we born in this spellbinding delusion, or is that something that's learned from a
Yeah, great question.
from an infant to adulthood?
Yeah, so I would say that physiologically, and a lot of people, others have written about this. Maybe you've had people on your show. There's been there's been a natural degrading and tampering with the human DNA blueprint embodiment that would allow for it to have a maximal capacity to be the conscious, antenna that the human being is supposed to be on Earth. We're
Right.
like little. We talk about this, like my partner and I and others. We're like little cilia, like little bits of the intestine or something. We're like information receivers and transmitters to the broader organism of the Earth, and then out to the solar system, and then out to the galaxy, and actually between dimensions in quantum state between all phenomenon. But in every individual human has to be healthy. Every grouping of humans, society. So there's been an energetic tampering with human beings, their bodies, literally their bodies, for a long time, and it's cascaded into the degradation of culture, social cohesion, what love is, what connection is, what self is, everything. So we're at a lower
Mhm.
frequency in what people call Kali Yuga, which is long degraded age. Things are sort of in the shadow. And we
Mhm.
think it's an enlightened age, or we think we're in progress, but it's not that there isn't sort of technological progress maybe, or comfort progress, or any relative progress. Spiritual progress has been hindered greatly. So we're born with that template on earth for the last long while, and there will be a renaissance, and there is currently one. Both are happening right now, precipitated by essentially energy coming from the galactic sun, is how I understand it, and a lot of people understand it, which is quality of light, which is vibration, which is what gives information to the body of any body, the planet's body, a human body, is changing. Now, in that change, humans on Earth right now are facing themselves, so to speak, on every level. So that's a societal, an individual. Everyone's there's upheaval. The shadows coming to light.
Mhm.
And so people have lots of things. Oh, it's a negative time. It's going to be Armageddon, da da da, or whatever. Or they think it's a golden age. And right now, here we go, 5D. My point of view is that neither. It's both of those things. So we're accelerating into an evolution, but there's no guarantee that all human beings will hit that evolution. You know, evolution is messy. Spiritual
Yeah,
evolution is messy.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'll
So
stop there. Yeah.
you said earlier that that we're being tampered with. What does that mean?
So, um, others write about this better, and maybe they channel and spend a lot more time than I do on this. But I've had my glimpses in the astral and in lucid space and in my channeling for since I was a little kid, actually, since I was very, very little. And I was terrified as a small kid with the visions and worlds and beings I was seeing, and not the same as fantasy, not the same as the unconscious and the shadow, really seeing, remote viewing and seeing the way many people can. As we know, even the CIA and Pentagon and all that stuff funds
Right.
and looks towards that. Like that's exposed now, because lots of humans, actually, most humans do that, to some extent. Actually, dreams are basically just that. You're getting information, but there are basically these all types of layers of beings in the cosmos. There's a local relationship to beings that have an agenda for humanity, the way different political groups on Earth have agendas for humanity. Most of them are not abhorrently just interested in eating us or something like that. There is that layer,
Okay.
like, yeah, yeah. But then there's other ones, the tampering with and wishing for us to be a certain way, the way you would with any colony of animals or beings that you thought you knew what was best for them. So that's all happening. Um, it's all happening. That and benevolent beings that want to help raise our consciousness and stay out of our way, and just kind of give little prompts. There's so much to say about all of it. Yeah.
So, I, um, so it comes across then that we're an experiment, or we're a place of learning and growth, where they say that Earth is a school, and for the soul, and the soul evolves through each life that it transcends. Is that kind of what the direction that you're going?
Yeah, my experience, my knowledge, what I would say to that is that, and I don't think people have very different opinions. I think people are saying something similar.
Hmm.
That this realm of what we call samsara, form, like this is form realm, right? It's not as solid as we think, but
Right.
pretending that this isn't just a dream, because it is, but the place we call the earth, with its worldly dimension, okay, it's it's a place where mind and the energy of a continuum, you call that a soul, that's fine, incarnates, doesn't reincarnate, but rebirths until it sees through with enough energy. That's what a Kundalini awakening is about. Sees beyond its constraints. Usually they're like psychic constraints, addicted to sex, addicted to some kind of trauma it wants to keep replaying, sensual things, wants to get in a dynamic again with a bunch of people or a few different arrangements. Maybe they're the same people, or maybe they're surrogate people that they can learn. Usually they'll just get addicted to learning the same things over and over and over again until
Hmm.
they get tired, bored, or find a solution. And that can take eons. That can take kalpas, they say, of time. It's like people have no idea. It's like you do 3 lifetimes, that's nothing. Like, the amount of times that beings incarnate, even on different layers of samsara, where there's timelines that are like just like this world, but they're like layers in different uh, apparition layers that look like this world, but there's trillions of them. So
Okay.
I think people underestimate the vastness of dimensionality and the cosmos and of experience. Just think of a dream. It's like that. And
Hmm.
this life, while seeming so solid, you're not just incarnating again into like your city or this world plane. There's many ways to incarnate again and learn the same lessons, even in a heaven realm, even in a god realm, even in an animal realm. So it just keeps going until you realize, this is very Buddhist, that it's a dream. So yes, we incarnate here to continually learn how to get out of delusion.
Okay, so if this is a dream, then where is the dreamer?
Amazing question. Oh wow. Yeah, thank you. Uh, okay, I'll do my best again. Thank you for keeping me on my toes. Yeah. Um, I asked for it. I wrote the book. Um, so there is the um, mere mind, right? The mundane mind believes it's a self, has a collection of experiences, develops an ego, maybe even an ego that rebirths multiple times with a sense of identification in its own egoic boundary, a persona. That self is not permanent. And then you have a more core thing, which is just the experiences sort of unfolding like an algorithm through rebirths. That's closer to something that has no definitive qualities, but its nature is consciousness, but it's not total consciousness. It's still individuated. Now, in the book, I talk about these 12 dimensions, and I couldn't even tell you exactly what they are at this moment there, because I always look back on the page because I channeled it, and sort of what we talked about at the beginning. It's
Hmm.
its own sort of impression. Um, but every one of those dimensions is basically the extension of our consciousness, let's say, into more like two perspectives, three, four, higher intuition. Then you get into a mind that can be in multiple places with perspective, multiple bodies. Then you get into a mind that can manifest multiple bodies, multiple spaces. So self extends across multiple dimensions. The real answer to your question is, once we go back to totality, as everyone knows, basically every single spiritual point of view is this. We're back to God, whatever you call it, Hashem, totality, Dharmakaya. It's all the same. But while we are spinning in samsara, illusion, delusion, form realm, which is a long time until you become enlightened, we are always a type of self, and it's located beyond time and form as we know it. I'll finish in 1 second. But while we're here, it's in relative time. And that has a linear quality because the fourth dimension of time itself makes us feel like there was a past, present, and future.
Mm-hmm. When it's all existence all at the same time.
Yes, ultimately, it's all at the same time. And that's how channeling works. That's how Akashic Records, it's having an, I think that some people don't want to acknowledge that one has to have an intellectual knowledge. You have to actually have knowledge. It can't just be intuition and feel. You have to know that. You have to know in a deep knowing that we can choose. And in that choice making, somehow we start to sense how all time, all impressions, all potentials can be felt. So it's this nice rhythm between intuition, quantum, speed of thought, speed of feeling, sensing, but you also have to be cognizing it, or else who's doing it? We have this directional mind that chooses. So the human is amazing. The human is perfect, right? The human, that's why we are what we are. We can do it all, right? Mm-hmm. We're the envy of the galaxy. Humans are amazing.
So you also talk a little bit about the Pleiadians. Are they the architects of what we have become or are becoming?
Yes.
Okay.
Sounds like you know. It sounds like you already know this.
I read a lot and I talk to a lot of people.
Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah, that's exactly it. We carry a very similar, they're like our brethren, right? We carry the same warm-hearted humans at our basis are warm-hearted and joyful.
Mm-hmm. They are.
That's the truth. We're mm-hmm. very, very. I don't mean that we're like it feels good to lose someone, or we don't have any money. We're innately bypassing and silly, but our core is that's what we are when essentially if we were all safe, fed and safe, mm-hmm. And didn't feel lack, we're just joyful. We're calm, buzzing, joyful, and that tone is the same psychic, energetic, and embodied tone that the Pleiadians have. And they were able to get through the crap we're getting through and have individuation. They're individuals, but they're also connected in unity. They're not like the Borg or something, but they psychically interact, so yeah.
So why doesn't the general public know about them?
I don't think that
it seems to be like a well-kept secret or a superstition. I mean, everything you've been talking about, including them, is within the books of any religion is threads, and it's all interwoven, but not specifically this is how it is. So yeah. it seems like it's the best kept secret on the planet.
So humans are primarily visual and sense organ based. Like we like mm-hmm. to touch stuff, we like to hear things, we like to smell stuff, we like to see it and hear it. When we could contact the Pleiadians right now. There's no time lag. You just hold your heart, relax, completely surrender, open your heart, open one's heart with the grace and humility and poise and dignity, like the channel of your highest moral, character, but without any, it's not rigid. It's like, it's us at our best holding your heart. And in that love, there's just an instantaneous resting. And then there's a calling with your inner voice. We have inner voices. The inner voice is not an erotic voice. It's the voice of our spirit. Well, you have to contact that. First of all, that's part of Kundalini is you have a permanent inner voice that is your spirit or your soul's voice. It doesn't have to speak in a language. It is a tonality, it is a quality. It transmits across the entire cosmos in 1 second. And because that's what creates the cosmos, is that sound, like there was this, the word, and the word was God type thing. And so we get to feel them. So the reason is that the last 12,000 years, by my account, something like that, we've been in a frequency that's very sensual. It's very about these senses more than ever. We came out of a long time, where it was going downhill from our psychic intuitions and capacities. So the recorded history has a very muddled version of describing angels, of describing other beings, of describing higher consciousness. And it always does so as if you'll find them, just like people think they will do with the orbs and aliens that are coming now, as if those things will walk out of ships perfectly and use linear language. They're existing in a totally different dimensional space. Yeah.
So,
feeling.
You mentioned some, and I mentioned as well, some religions. So is this something that was known and then was kind of kept to a chosen few? I'm talking 12,000 years ago. I'm talking so this is like, well, when you have your high priestess or your pharaohs or, whatever the case may be, to where they're like, no, only we are the ones that, deserve to have this knowledge or this ability or understand our abilities. Or is that just kind of,
yeah. No, it is that the hermetic, lineage of making things sealed and concealed and then becoming occult, as you know very, very well,
right.
is a practice that has codified things that then get mutated, because the only way to do this is directly. You can't teach these things as symbol. That is the problem with the occult, is it says, well, if you understand these codes, you'll understand what we were talking about. The only thing to ever do is direct experience. And if you're not, it's not even trained. If you are not given the conditions to have direct experience, then there's no quote unquote proof. And so the only people who had direct experience for a time, the people who had the most powerful direct experience for a time, especially early dynasty Egypt, for instance, that you mentioned, which was the very different dynasties, the early dynasties and the late dynasties of Egypt, separated by 6,000 years. Like, they're totally different. People don't remember that. It's not the same as just like, 1500s Europe versus now. It's a whole other paradigm was happening under very similar architecture, but they were totally different spiritual technologies. So there were beings in the earlier ones that were looked up to, that there were these, Hermes and stuff like that. There were these super beings on Earth that we can't even imagine actually how there were leader beings. There was a trickle down effect into the communal thing that related to the sort of spearheads of consciousness in the matriarchal, planes, but it wasn't power based. It was natural. Now you get a different paradigm emerging, and it's basically continued since of control, right, and of dominion, and then of, anyway, just control, symbol, more and more symbol, more complexity and symbol. Those symbols right now are being exposed for being controlled. So basically every single symbol around looks strange now. It starts to look, you start to see it for what it is, that we're in a symbol world spellbinding us. And people are waking up to that. They're sort of unconsciously waking up to it right now. And some people are very consciously waking up that the projection of spells is how everything works, including language itself, obviously.
Right.
So we used to have direct awareness. I think that was your question.
Yeah. So you had these great beings. Where did they go? What happened? Did they leave?
Yeah, so Hermes, the one we mentioned a second ago, the way people understand that being, Thoth, etc., um, holding many names, and always available. The lore behind that, and I think it's accurate based on my own channeling. It doesn't need to be, it is a he in the sense that he's the keeper of knowledge, sort of like the ultimate librarian. He has many features, has a trickster feature, has an honorable gatekeeper feature, and has the bestower of knowledge of cosmic truth and earthly truth and a lot of human wisdom as well. And if you have a direct experience with this being, you're being led into the library and it says, well, all is available. What can you handle? Now, as humans made a choice, or like I said earlier, we're programmed away, genetically modified and changed and mutated and spellbound by their own systems and leaders and things they wrecked into themselves, by inception and also just by Kali Yuga, by the energy of human beings degrading for a time. And it's just the waves of cycles of
Mm-hmm.
time. It just does that, right?
Right.
It just does that. That's okay. But it's both of those things. A being like Hermes goes underground into this sort of crystalline interior of this earth. Now you say, well, where is he underground? Can I drill down and there's this super being with a library, like a magical honeycomb mega place? No, it's in the astral, but it's in the
Right.
lower astral. And this is what's profound about Hermes. I'll say this. I think some of you may appreciate this. People think the astral is delineated by lower, meaning darker and bad, and then upper as good. And to an extent, that's true. But the lower, you can't be so judgmental of these things. Every single being wants to get out of suffering. Demons, ghosts,
Sure.
bad aliens, everything doesn't want to suffer. Just like an addict looking for drugs, they're just looking to get out of pain.
Right.
Their method might be
Right.
self-destructive or it might hurt their families, but that's the best they can do. They're limited in wisdom. So Hermes' thing, Thoth's thing, is that he rests in the underworld where there is a murky space of things that have not yet woken up. And isn't that the best place for knowledge to rest? So they exist, and all of them exist. The Christ template exists. Everything exists. It's only out of sight because most people are 100% addicted to, like, think about people's minds right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yeah.
scrambled eggs, me too, everyone, distracted, addicted, very agitated, very taken away from grace. And so we're on a bandwidth of consciousness generally as things rumble right now, where we can't access all the old gods and all the new consciousness that's coming to earth.
Right. I mean, that's, you hit it on the head. I mean, that's one of the things that we teach to our students is um, that you have to be aware of the outside influences that are trying to manipulate your inner thoughts, your inner being. And a lot of people are giving into it. They're just like, oh my God, it's that constant crisis that we're in, or we seem to be in. It's just like, and people are like they freak out. They're looking for more ways to get away from it, or at least not have to think about it. So they're looking for those distractions of whether it be TV or drugs or alcohol, whatever the case may be. And they're trying to get away from it when that's not but that's what they're taught. That's how they're taught to do. So what I'm understanding from you is that to find that connectedness that we all are evolving to have, that the Kundalini and the study of Buddhism and Dharma is kind of the owner's manual. Because everyone,
Yeah.
what I see is everyone's telling you how bad it is, or how horrible it is, or how this is and such, but nobody will say, so do this.
Yeah.
And they're thriving off of that. And it's just like, well, I mean, this pertains to, in my opinion, this pertains to virtually anything and everything. It pertains to racism. You have lots of people talking about racism. Well, How do we, well, it's not a matter of knowing how to get out of it. Well, yeah, it is. It's how not to perceive things as that. Or, the big gender thing that we've got going on right now. That's the, theme of the month or theme of the year. It's a matter of, people need a study guide. They need a manual. They need to say, okay, I understand this stuff is going on, but how and what do I do to keep that from affecting me?
Yeah.
We call it observe, interpret, and respond. It's just like, to where you can see that something's happening and so observe it and then you interpret what's going on and then you respond rather than react. And it's kind of like staying in
Yeah.
the eye of the storm. You can watch the
Mm,
chaos going around you, but you're just in the eye where it's nice and calm and you can just simply observe the things that are going on and then make that choice. As you said, you choose to participate in that or that or that, but it's your choice. And so many people
yeah.
these days don't feel that they have a choice. They just get my reference, and most people don't get it because I'm dating myself, but it's like being the little silver ball in the pinball machine. You're just bouncing,
Yeah.
just boom, 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 and somebody else is controlling all the flippers. And and you're just out of control. It's just like you need to basically get out of the pinball machine and just be
Yeah.
yourself. So, how does the study of Buddhism and Dharma, how does that contribute to your channeling practice?
I mean, you got it, and thank you so much. I would much rather, and I feel much more comfortable in some ways, just doing my tiny part, spreading Dharma and keeping it simple.
Hmm.
And the rest of it's like the metaphysics, the Gnostic sort of conversation is like the gears and stuff. That's interesting, right? And channeling, it gets interesting, like the wild cosmos. What you said is true. I mean, if we finally get it, if we have enough insight, I dare to call it a realization, because those are what my teachers call, like, when you have stabilized realization, they don't go away. So I don't
Hmm.
know what that is. Uh, I wouldn't claim that. But we realize, just as you said, we are, as my first shamanic teacher, said, we're energy determiners. And when we get it, really get that, and it has to come through massive trauma for some people, massive
Yeah.
sadness and loss of cohesion of your own psyche or whatever, you go crazy, whatever happens, you start to realize that, just what you said, those conditions, like, oh, I'm in a condition again. It's like, no, uh, you could go to hell and make it heaven. What are you gonna do? You know what I mean? Like, and it's
Hmm.
always holding, for me, that bodhisattva vow that actually, no matter a divorce, loss, I mean, make it as undesirable a scenario as possible. Realize that we don't change in our upright warrior position. Warrior is probably the wrong word. It's war has a strange, etymology, weird, but you know what we mean. Like,
Sure.
we're sort of, you're like, it's like your graceful surrendered dignity of the bodhisattva is to realize it's all an illusion, it's all a dream, it's karma ripening, which is cause and effect our own mind created over eons, right? It's the best our mind could do. So why would you take it personally? Now, it's easier said than done, because you say that and people go, okay, sounds great. Okay, then the minute later you step in dog crap, or, like, you don't have any money or something, and it's like, we're angry. There's okay, so reactivity is going to happen. It's going to flood through your system. We're organic beings. Now, I'm in danger, fight or flight, and the list goes on. Notions of failure, ego, blah blah blah. I didn't do well, whatever. The thing is, the more you practice when we're not in acute moments, the more we practice wishing for all beings to be enlightened, right? It's not about ourselves. You want to be the super being that's going to help all beings by
Hmm.
spreading compassion and love. So this beam of love coming from us, that's really not an idiot's love. It's not like, oh, like the compassion of nowadays that you mentioned, it's like totally incoherent compassion where anything anyone does goes and everyone's voting for murderers and it's just like nuts. That's
Right.
not compassion. you know uh Compassion is just wishing for them to get out of their own way, and to get, just what you said, to find their center again, that they are a
Hmm.
determiner, and just to observe. You just said it, they're the eye of the storm, to become the observer. Dispassionate equanimity mixed with your own confidence and love.
I love that. Very good. Very, very nice.
uh,
So, Um, how does along with the channeling practices, how do you incorporate like music and film and art into the work that you do, into the spiritual practice that you have?
I mean, I thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, it sounds like you're a teacher, and then you also host others. So there's probably balance. You like probably, I don't know. I just assume you enjoy the balance that
Hmm.
that provides, where there's
For
a
sure.
give and take, and yeah, and you're supplying like a platform for me right now, and there's energy there, and there's kind of service, and it's like an exchange, but you also have the work where you get to share what you know and teach and raise people up. Um, Art is kind of the same way. I mean, it's like artists usually die because if they're really channeling the edge of culture, then they're really saying something. They're sort of the they're literally channels, and that's what I used to do. And then I really wanted to understand, like the records I made musically. I made a whole lot of records. I put
Oh,
them
did
out
you?
and I
Okay.
toured, and they were. I did, and I was
Huh?
touring. I was, rock bands, and then weirdo bands, and played all the instruments, the whole thing. And what I realized is I was channeling myself. I was self mythologizing, and I was talking about so many things without knowing how it was happening. And we know that, right? When you make music that comes from God or whatever you say, it's just coming from the cosmos. And it's like even the things you're playing, it's like jazz.
Hmm.
Not that I played
Sure.
jazz proper, but you're playing, and it's like your body didn't. It's not like there's predetermined thought. You're just having a living experience inside of something. So what is that? I mean, and then I wanted to understand it. I guess what I want to say is like, um, I still make art, and I understand that take requires no dissection. It may be a little bit of mapping. If you're working with others, you have to talk and stuff
Sure.
sometimes, but really just that flow. But on the other hand, I wanted to share with people how spirit works through with creativity, because the Pleiadians, the Akashic records, the whole Kundalini experience, the suffering that's in art that brings you to places where you can be of service, where you're giving some poetry about reality. It's the same thing as being a spirit worker. If you're honest, a lot of spirit workers these days are not very creative. They're not very, I mean, why wouldn't it be creative? Why wouldn't it be joyful?
Yeah.
And they're rigid. They're rigid, or they're totally droopy and playful, and they don't know how serious it all is. So I like to think that I've spanned, and not, I mean, I'm 47 years old in Earth solar years, and, I've understood this stuff for a long time, that there's a blend between this very serious truth of reality and the total chaotic playfulness. And in between that, you get a sine wave of energy where you can really, create something, and you can also share how creation works. I'm saying too much now, but I appreciate
No,
all of it. And
it's good. It's
yeah,
good. It's
yeah,
good. I love the
okay,
passion. I really do. And the
yeah,
the fact that you are taking this information and trying to and not trying, but actually sharing it with the world in the best way you possibly can, which is, as you said earlier, it's one of the reasons that we have this particular show is that I think that as you do, that the world is generally good and it
mm,
wants to be
mm,
good and such. I
yes,
think that there's just a small percentage of people who like the anger, they like the war, they like the destruction. And unfortunately, we keep putting them in places of power. And it's just like it doesn't make a lot of sense. But at the same time, the chaos that people are experiencing, they're just like, this is constantly going on. This is just my life. And what you're doing is just like, no, this isn't your life. There's
mm,
something better. And it's the adage of you don't know what you don't know. And
yes,
and I'm constantly consuming things as far as knowledge and going, oh, well, I thought it was this way. All right, make a note of that. And it's like I was interviewing a scientist and they kept using the term, well, this is the way it is. And I kind of pushed back and like, this is the way it is, or as far as up until now. Because 20
yeah,
years ago, we've already changed a lot of that science.
Yeah, it's called epistemic humility, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
there's no people have this epistemic, like the whatever, like this systematic view. They only have these the tools. It's all very Marshall McLuhan or whatever. Like the medium is message. They have these tools, including their senses, and you think I've a. It's just like okay, so just like science, the spiritual science is the same. Oh, I see this way. I process and cognize this way. I feel this way, and therefore I understand the experience of human. Well,
Right,
if you extended or expanded or burst that, you would have a internalized paradigm shift whereby one would realize existence itself is very different than we thought. But that's not something people want to do because just like with science proper, when it gets exploded, then you have to go back and go, well, this technology that we thought was doing stuff, if you look at the real data, it was doing terrible things over time. But hasn't that been the story for thousands of years anyway? But now we're suddenly locked in on how it's nonsense. It's such lack of humility. Like, keep revising. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it really is.
So,
All right. So,
mm,
what's the name of your book? Tell us the name of your book again, where people can find it,
okay.
what you got set for the horizon. I'm sure, I'm hoping that there's going to be another one.
Thank you. I Yeah, I think so. I better get started. So I don't know. I'm just trying to get out of my car in a minute. I don't know about writing a book, but I no no. The book is called The Realized Light of the 12 Dimensions, Cosmic Rebirthing and Our Celestial Destiny. The
I like it.
Realized Light of the 12 Dimensions. And it's Barnes and Nobles all across the states in the UK. And other bookstores, Simon and Schuster, and then you can go to yeah, if you go to the Barnes and Nobles, apparently that's the best place for me to send people.
Mhm.
And if
Okay.
people, I don't know if I'm allowed to plug this, but if people want to work one on one with me, my work
Sure.
is, and it's getting
Please.
quite booked up because of the book. Thank you. They can go to joshuareichmann.com, joshuareichmann.com. I don't know, JOSHUAREICHMANN.com. And then I have booking on there for Akashic readings, and I do that daily. So that's my work.
All right. Well, we'll put all that in the show notes, and so people can get a,
Okay.
direct contact with you if they want. And then you also have a Facebook profile.
I have an Instagram
Okay.
at Josh Reichmann. Yeah.
Okay. I'll put that down there as well.
Thank you.
And, Josh, this has been enlightening for myself, and I greatly appreciate you taking the time. And
Mm.
good luck on your tour. And how long are you going to be in Europe?
Another 15 days.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
Little
Fantastic.
while.
I love it over there. I
Yeah.
do. I envy you.
I know. Yeah. It's
All right.
painful.
I'll let you
Yeah.
go. And but like I said, good luck. And if there's anything else we can do, if book two starts to come out, you let us know. We'll get you back on.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time
My
and
pleasure.
energy, and that was great questions. I felt really activated. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. All right. You have a great one. Thank you.
Take care of us. Thank you.
Bye bye.